Good morning. It's 5:46 a.m. on Wednesday, November 9th, 2016. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. Earlier than usual because I couldn't sleep. So, that election happened. I'll be honest, I'm kind of feeling sick to my stomach about the whole thing. It's very disappointing in a pretty profound way. I am kind of horrified at the thought of all of the progress that could get rolled back. And in fact, I vaguely sort of have the sense that that's the only thing that they would actually be able to accomplish. The positive things that they want, or at least say that they would try to do, more jobs, helping the economy, all of that stuff. I am not remotely confident that they would be capable of doing that. But filling the Supreme Court with conservatives and repealing Obamacare without a reasonable replacement and things like that, I absolutely believe they could do those things with... okay. I'm not happy. It's pretty scary, actually. Luna, I think, is responding to my stress level a little bit. I'm trying to not worry her, but here's what I've been trying to tell myself, at least. We knew going in that about half the country wanted Trump. Turns out that it was a bit more than half instead of a bit less than half. So while the outcome is very different as a result, the condition that created it is not as different as we thought it was. So we need to remember that this is not... It's very upsetting at the possibility of what might happen, but let's try not to have this imply that somehow the entire country went from being fine to being terrible, because it was always really half one way and half the other way, and the balance just shifted just a little bit. Unfortunately, it was just enough of a little bit to potentially have some bad consequences. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I want to try to remain hopeful, if only because despair is not productive. That's easier said than done. And certainly, I am not as direct a target of some of the bad things that might happen as some people are. And so there's a degree of privilege there. But at the same time, I just can't help but think of the advice that we give people in almost any other challenging situation, which is to not give up. It's like with writing, what they say, the advice you hear over and over again is that you have to be persistent. You have to keep working. If you let the first rejection you get make you stop writing, well, then nothing happens. And you're just going to stop, and that's it. That's the end of your story. So, while this is a setback for many of the causes that I believe in, no question about it. If we want to look at this, it's kind of always been this tug of war, right? Where each side is kind of just trying, each side is pulling, and they're fairly evenly matched most of the time, but each side is just trying to pull that center point over the line onto their side so that they have the privileges to do things in the government. And so this is an element where the other side has successfully pulled it back onto their side. And while that's upsetting, if we just try to, like, if we just say, oh no, it's the end, this is the worst thing that could ever happen, this is terrible, I give up, and let go of the rope, well, then they just run away with it, and they do everything that they want. The better response, though it's easier to say than to do, is to keep pulling. You know, keep pulling as hard as we can. Don't let them get it any further onto their side than they already have. And hopefully next time around, we get it back. And there will be a mess to clean up, probably. I think it's also true that there's some degree of hyperbole in terms of how bad this is, but I don't know. It's possible some of these things might, really turn out for the worst. But in a lot of ways, despite this moving in a direction that I didn't want, I still have a lot of respect for our system of government, which sounds weird to say, because obviously there's lots of problems, but it kind of has always been that way. There's not really ever been another government that didn't have problems, because you have any system that's trying to rule a complex population that has a whole spectrum of points of view, and you have a lot of people who are motivated by contradictory drives, and lots of them are smart and lots of them have resources. It's going to make any system very complicated. But sometimes you have checks and balances and laws put in place to try to, hold the line there. And for example, like constitutional amendments don't just require a majority. They require, supermajorities, and they require, ratification of states. Like, those things are in place precisely to avoid having there be too dramatic a swing with any one administration or Congress. And so I just have to have two things here, rather than just, despair or panic. Have to have hope, and we have to have drive to keep the situation from being as bad as it could be. And the other thing we have to remember too is that while it's easy to demonize the other side, and I don't want to, I hope my attitude in perceiving points in this video indicate which side I'm on here. But it's important to remember that even the people who some people cast their votes for Trump for a variety of reasons. But even the ones who cast their vote for the least rationally justifiable reasons, like very prejudiced reasons, are likely doing so out of fear and ignorance. And while that doesn't make that okay exactly, it's also not effective to just say, oh, well, those people are monsters, we shouldn't even communicate with them. I mean, that doesn't accomplish anything. It just makes those people madder and madder until they do what we saw last night. So this is all upsetting. But I'm trying to have hope because, like I said at the beginning, It's more productive than despair. So, this is not going to be great. We're going to have to work very hard to keep it from being as bad as it could be, and to hopefully, pull it back in the right direction at our next opportunity. So, everyone out there who's disappointed this morning, I don't want to just tell you not to feel bad, because that's silly. But I will say not to give up. All right, so this is 3 days running. I still haven't talked about how I saw Doctor Strange. Just seems less important in the grand scheme of things. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all tomorrow for another 5 more minutes.